All right, join the conversation, hashtag GH Today. Our guests are all seated, ready to do the business. On my far left, I have from the MPP, Eric Amoah-Kuchum. He's a member of the communications team. Eric, good morning.
Morning, Tafi.
And we also have Koku Mauli Nanagbe. Been here before, and it's good to have you here again, Koku.
Thank
so
you.
welcome to the show. You're from the
Thank
NDC.
Sure.
Okay, so we don't have any current MPs here, because if we bring them here, we are pitching them against their constituents. And they may not get the vote again. Yeah. But we're going to raise a former MP, because he's out, so or she is out. Yeah. Nothing to lose, really. And they'll tell us exactly what is in the soup. We do have here, although one of our guests actually tried to run for Member of Parliament for his particular constituency. We'll be getting his experience as well. But as Beswa said, that CDD study is out, and it appears that we don't really know what the core function of our MPs are. We see them as ATMs and development agents, people who we can rely on for funding for all our social needs. Why is that so? We'll be speaking with Dr. Franklin Odro, who is one of the authors of this particular report from the CDD. He'll give us a background to the whole report and tell us exactly what they were looking for, how many people they even spoke to. And I understand this was sometime in 2012, so we'll be getting background on that. And you can reach out to us. Tell us, what are your expectations? What do you expect from your Member of Parliament? Is he or she somebody who is supposed to be making laws for your community? Or is he or she somebody who needs to be at your beck and call to have your needs met? On the line now, we do have from the CDD, the authors of this report, Dr. Franklin Odro. Franklin, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kafi.
All right. We're glad to have you here. You're the Director of Research at CDD. Give us a sense of why this report came about and what exactly you were looking at, who you spoke to in about 2-3 minutes. Give us a background to this report.
Sorry, Kafi, I'm not hearing you well.
Doc, I wanted you to give us a background to this particular report that we are talking about, which involves how voters perceive their MPs and why they vote. Give us a background to the report.
Thank you, and good morning to your viewers as well. First of all, this is a study that we conducted as part of a global study that the center has been involved since 2012, looking at how do we generate new knowledge to contribute to policy making towards reducing poverty. And so one of the research streams that we conducted was to get a sense of how elected officials, in particular members of parliament, engage their citizens and vice versa. In other words, what kind of intent that voters do have that inform their choices. How do MPs feedback to their constituents in a manner that generates discussions towards poverty reduction. And so we did this study in 10 selected constituencies throughout the country, one per each region. The constituencies selected were constituencies that were proven to be poverty stricken, looking at various statistical data, including Ghana Standard Living Survey and others. And there were 5 broad issues that were very much. First of all, we wanted to know to what extent that citizens were interested in public affairs, politics, political participation. What was their preference method in terms of contacting MPs? In other words, to locate a means of interaction and engagement with citizens, MPs, issues around accountability, feedback. And we're also very much interested in expectations of voters in terms of what they believe MPs should do once elected. And of course, the question about action, what do they do once elected? And then finally, we also very much interested in voter intent, that what factors influence their preferences, why they will choose for one candidate over the other.
Okay, thanks for that. How many people were spoken to in this particular study?
So in total, we spoke to 1,200 respondents.
1,200, 1,200.
1,200. And in a way, you could make the argument that 10 constituencies out of 275 constituencies might be very on the low side. But the essence here, as you know, in all surveys, there are so many factors that we consider. But the most important objective was to get a sense, some kind of indicators, as to how much do citizens know of the functions and roles of the MPs, and how much of those roles do MPs actually perform.
Do you think?
And what is it that we need to know and do more as part of generating new knowledge to fight poverty and to promote accountability.
Thank you, Dr. Ojo. Do you think 10 constituencies out of 275 and 1,200, a sample size of 1,200 is big enough to generalize your findings?
Well, first of all, as I said before, I concede, we concede that it is not enough. I think I just stated that before, that 10 out of 275, one could make the argument that, well, it's not that much. But, in this sense, we use them as pointers, as indicators, to look at the broader issue.
Okay.
But, the point, since this findings came out, we've had so many calls from MPs and from others that suggest that, well, now you've let the cat out, and these are things that really are happening, but there wasn't any, perhaps any empirical evidence to support that. So to answer your question, there's a sense that you can use these findings to make some kind of general observations, but it may also require further studies, further insights to know actually what are the dynamics in terms of the broad findings that we have put out.
Now, Doc, I'm curious, did the research take into account the safe seats in these constituencies?
Come again, the what?
Safe seats, so that I'm looking at, indeed. So out of the 275 seats, we know that at least we have about between 180, 190 safe seats, so that if an NPP man goes to the Volta region and gives them like heaven, because most of the seats in the Volta region are for the NDC, for instance, that definitely will not impact the voting pattern.
Yeah. So no, that's a very interesting question. As I said, the 10 constituencies were selected from the 10 regions. So definitely, they included some safety. So there was one from Ashanti Road, if I recall. One was Bosome Frehon, which obviously is a safe seat for the MPP. There was one from the Volta region, which is in Kwanta, which I suspect strongly that it's also another safe seat for the NDC. So the interesting thing is that whether it was a safe seat or it was a competitive seat or closely contested seat, the responses and observations were the same in terms of expectations of voters on MPs, that MPs should or a member of parliament should directly provide benefits to them and to provide gifts and school fees and so on and so forth. And the fact that many of the respondents did not understand and appreciate the core functions of member of parliament, i.e. representation, lawmaking and oversight, were also cut across all the states, whether safe or closely contested seats.
Frank, can you just give us a summary of the findings? What did you find out at the end of this study?
Well, first of all, there are four big insights into this study. The first one, which confirms existing studies that Ghanaians generally are active and interested in public affairs, politics. They discuss that. They discuss that with their families and friends. The fact that 4 out of 10 any 10 Ghanaians claim that they are very much interested in public affairs 3 out of 10 say they are somewhat interested. So if you put the two together, we're talking about 7 out of 10 Ghanaians indicating that they are interested in politics, public affairs. They discuss some of these issues. Related to the fact that radio continue to be the major source of news for these Ghanaians, which wasn't that surprising because there are studies that have indicated that radio, as compared to the print or internet or other sources, remains the major source of news for most citizens. The second interesting finding that we asked about expectations of MPs in terms of understanding the role of members of parliament, and it was so interesting that the 3 core functions, making good laws for the country, providing oversight functions and representation, came very low. These were things that people didn't think that was the mandate or the role of an MP. And instead, things that had to do with provision of support for individuals, including gifts, loans, paying school fees, donations at funerals, were things that were really high on the agenda of most voters. The expectation that the MP should be someone who will directly provide some tangible developmental goods to the constituency and to the voter was also something that was high. And we sort of related that, and the third key finding was, so what will motivate you to vote for a particular MP in terms of voter decision making? And about 77% or close to 8 out of 10 said that, well, they will vote for the MP to what extent that MP can provide direct development projects. And how much, about 6 out of 10 said how much this MP can provide support, personal support, to many people in the constituency. The question as to how much the MP will be effective in lawmaking, passing good laws, be effective with oversight functions, checking corruption or ensuring that there's the usual use of resources. All of those things were very secondary to most voters. And we thought that those were very interesting and very worrying for our democracy.
And Doc, how would you link poverty to, this research findings?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the things that came out forcefully for us as researchers, in the sense that because these constituencies that we looked at were very poor in terms of numbers compared to others, many people were very much interested in basic life in terms of daily living, and to what extent that MP can solve their daily problems in terms of how can I send my kids to school, how can the MP help us get jobs, take us to the police or anything, how can the MP provide that direct poverty reduction goods.
Right.
And so I think that there was a close relationship with that. But the point to be made here is that the MP is not, strictly speaking, a developmental agent. The developmental agent is the executive, the assemblies, the DCs. And so for us, voters and citizens were misdirecting their demand,
right,
to different agents, which is problematic.
Okay, Dr. Oduro, just want to clarify this. When was this study done?
So this was done in 2012, leading to the 2012 elections. We've sort of disseminated all of this, but there was a conference we had this week, and Monday, Tuesday, which we also shared that findings as well, and I suspect that's why it sort of come out in the media strongly.
But why is it being reported now, 4 years after the study was done?
That's what I'm saying, that we did report it in 2012, 2013. For some reason, we discussed this subject again at an international conference we had this week, Monday and Tuesday, looking at issues around poverty. That research that I talked about. For some reason, the media took this up and then they reported it again. There were so many issues that we discussed, including social protection, the LEAP project. We discussed the health and vulnerability issues at this conference. We discussed institutions and pro-poor policy spaces, including decentralization, and to how much the space is creating opportunity for citizens to make input. We shared experiences from other countries in Latin America, Vietnam, in Asia, in Europe. But, you know, as always, the media chooses to report and things that interest them. And so this is something that the media took it up.
Okay, so we are responsible for publicizing a study that was done in 2012, as if it's fresh news right now.
Yeah, because everything, the information, the data, the years, everything is contained in the report that was given out. But as I read many of the stories, I haven't seen where media even point that, oh, this thing was done in 2012. No, because again, that is why it's important that the media, all of us, have to help to properly educate and inform Ghanaians properly. Everything is clearly stated, but as I said, there were various issues that were discussed. But this is what I believe the media found interesting.
Well, Doc, I guess it's probably coming up again because there's a lot of talk about how that we're voting more on personalities rather than the issues that affect us as a people. But the CDD is recommending education for voters. Will that change the state of affairs?
Well, we need to do that. Well, there are two questions to your question. One is, is the situation acceptable? The findings and the situation which is backed by anecdotal evidence. If you go out and you do your own survey and speak to MPs, they are going to come. And indeed, all the members of parliament who attended the conference, including Honorable Muntaka, who launched this policy brief, confirmed that. And behind the scenes, they have been confirmed that indeed there are anecdotal evidence that many MPs lost their seat because they are unable to perform these direct goodies.
Honorable Muntaka, for instance, says that you need at least 500,000 Ghana cedis to go into that position. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important for us to change course. We need to reduce the cost of politics. We need to ensure that the cost of contesting a parliamentary seat is not too much so that we can attract good quality and a wide range of people to do that. So we need to stop this thing. We need to do something.
Right.
We think that one way to do that is to educate. We should intensify, we should deepen education of voters and citizens for them to understand and appreciate the role of members of parliament.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just before I let you go, was this study a PhD work?
No, it wasn't a PhD work.
Who funded the study?
This is a study that CDD is part of 18 research and university institutions from 22 countries from around the world.
All right.
CDD is the one that did the Ghana study. In Africa, there were 4 countries: University of Cape Town in South Africa, university professors from Madagascar, and a policy center just as us in Senegal.
Okay.
And this was funded by the European Union, and the research project is led by University of Dauphine in Paris. All of this information is contained in the policy brief. If you lay your hands on a copy, Kafi, I'm sure you'll be well informed.
I thank you very much for informing us most exhaustively. Thank you so much. Head of Research at CDD, Dr. Franklin Udro. We're looking at what compels or forces, influences voters to vote for the people of their choice. Let's get back into the studio. Let me kick off with Eric Amwakuchum, who tried to be MP for the constituency of Trobu. Yes. Before we ask why the people vote the way they do, why did you decide to be an MP or try to be an MP in spite of all that's going on, what we've seen?
Thank you, Kafi. I think good morning to all the viewers out there. This morning happens to be an engagement between one of your very own, Giovanni.
Yes, indeed.
And my niece.
Oh, okay.
Belinda.
All right,
So,
nice.
congratulations to them in advance.
All right.
And then from here, I'm heading there.
You're heading there big time.
Right.
Yes, our love to them.
So basically, I decided to contest. Before that, I was actually a first vice chairman for my constituency. And then I actually resigned and contested. Now, it was more of a motivation to sort of empower the youth. Now, I've always felt that there's this tendency of ceding authority and policy and all of these things to people who do not necessarily understand and appreciate how the youth feel. Now, in my constituency, for instance, I felt that it was a need for us to sort of have a change in direction, not necessarily that the MP was the bad or wasn't doing his job and everything. But, I mean, of course, there's also always a personal ambition to serve your people. Of course, after the contest, you close ranks and then you support whoever wins. But really, you realize that a lot of people misunderstand the role that you are actually even going to play as a member of parliament. And even that starts from, I mean, even when you take it to the member of parliament, you're taking it a bit too far. As you have become an official of a political party or somebody who is basically quite known as a member of a political party, there's a ton of pressure that basically comes onto you as a person. Now, I'm sure we will get there. And I like the idea that we have to probably go into a certain massive education drive to make sure that the people, the citizens really understand the role of these individuals, especially when you talk about the member of parliament, for instance, so that there's not untold pressure. I mean, sometimes right now, of course, I didn't win. But
did you feel pressure in your campaign? In
the campaign, and even now I feel some kind of pressure. But I feel sorry for my MP, for instance, because, I mean, quite apart from all the amount of money that you would spend during the primary season, and we should talk about the primaries as well.
How much money went into that?
Quite a lot of money. I mean, Muntaka was talking about 500,000, Honorable Muntaka, but in certain places you actually would spend in excess of that. Especially
you said
when,
at least, so I can't
yes, yeah, but it will well in excess of that, especially in areas where there's a sure banker that once you win the primaries, you are basically in parliament.
So they take the tax ahead.
Yes, and there's this perception out there that if they don't take the money off you right now or they don't milk you right now, and you get there, you're actually not going to come back, or you're not going to do what they say you should do.
Is it not because you promised them heaven and earth, and then once they have won the elections now,
so we'll come to that. So a lot of people also go out there and make all sort of really fantastic promises, things that they know well deep down in their hearts that they can't do, or it's not within their power. So members of parliament will be promising roads, will be promising to build schools, will be promising to do all that, whilst they know really that is way beyond their remit. And we are all, I mean, sort of guilty of that. But the education really should go so people would appreciate exactly what role it has to, I mean, members of parliament and other politicians will have to play. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we have this thing in this country where you say, Ghanaians are magicians, right? And we've sort of allowed that thing to fester. And for me, I think that it's basically sort of trying to anchor a certain level of maybe dishonesty. I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. Because if you say the person is a magician, which means that the guy earns 7,000 Ghana cedis, right? 7,000, the average MP earns 7,200 Ghana cedis, right? And the guy is meant to be paying your school fees. It's meant to be paying for your dowry. It's meant to be paying for your medical bills. It's meant to be doing all that. And then you turn around. I mean, this thing has been said before. I mean, I'm sure it would sound controversial, but I mean, you have to say it as it is. And then you turn around and you say that, oh, that individual is actually probably corrupt also. Now, we have created this thing, right? And it's something that we have to deal with. I think that is actually part of our social fabric, that we do not necessarily care where the individual actually makes the money or gets the money from, as far as we would benefit individual on an individual basis. So really, I'm sure that they have to probably do a bigger study to really our psyche as a people, where you're demanding, where you know, for instance, that you have one individual. So in my constituency, for instance, you have 720-something, 25 delegates. And then you have their families and their friends and all that. So you are basically having about 3,000 people who would essentially would want to get something from you. Either it's a school fees they want, if that they want you to find them a job. So you have to sort people out. So you have to sort people out. Bottom line. But you're one individual.
Yes, and you can't sort out the
And you can't do that. And then, of course, when you can't do that, you become
ineffective.
Or you become unpopular.
Was that your fate? Was that your fate?
Well, I don't necessarily. I'm sure. No, of course. I mean, there are other factors that goes into it. But my point really is that, so even if the individual comes today and you can do it, the next time you can't do it, really.
Yeah, so the man is not performing.
You understand. I remember, for instance, even on election day, people came to me directly and say that,
oh, straight into your face.
Yeah, they tell you. So really, that's what I'm saying, that we need to have a better conversation.
Okay.
The way we even fund political parties, the duration within which we even open nominations and elections happen and all that, it's probably a bit too long.
Okay, so we need shorten
it. We need to shorten it. It's a week, 2 weeks. You vote, that's you're out of there. Otherwise, what it does is that it puts untold pressure on people who run for public offices.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, there's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And we have to be
mindful of that.
And be open and transparent about it as well.
Let's bring in Koku.
Koku, yeah. Does that not buttress my point that you're going in for this position, Member of Parliament, and you're promising heaven and earth? And in deprived communities where people are poor to the bone, where else do you expect them to turn to for help?
Thank you, Lisa. And Kafi, good morning to you and your cherished viewers. To an extent, I agree with you. And but first, there's something I want to look at. I'm not going to be naive about the report Dr. Franklin Odro and CDD has done. I mean, it's real. But my difficulty, however, has to do about the percentage of 84% involved in such a development. What it means is that if you want to rely on it, then it means that the issue of apathy that we've been hearing about, in particularly the strongholds of parties, we shouldn't have been hearing about them, really, if it is the case that the voters, largely, about 84% of them are getting influences. And in fact, the study is saying about preferences, behavior, and expectations.
And that 84% that Koku is talking about is that the CDD study has revealed that 84% of Ghanaian voters base their voting decisions on a candidate's ability to use money to help other people, you know, pay school fees, dowries, funeral costs, things like that. So that is the 84%. I just want to put it in that context.
Exactly. And I'm saying that if we are relying on that 84%, then we are saying that the issue of apathy shouldn't have been with us at all.
The report doesn't say that. No. They vote based on that. Doesn't mean that after they have voted, 84% of the population get some kind of monetary or
they base their calculations.
Exactly. And I'm saying, by the end of the day, they go out there to vote. And it's what is influencing them to vote. And that's the point that I'm making. I am saying that the 84% for me, I mean, it's quite on the high side. Because if you see, in fact, between the NDC and NPP, and they are the ones I want to use in this analysis, because if you take all the political parties put together, aside NDC and NPP, I mean, they had about 1.34% in the last elections. And the NPP, for instance, Nana Addo or the NPP had about 5.2, whereas, President Mills had about, about 5.5 and about 300,000 difference. And what I'm saying is that in between them, they have a minimum of about 5.2 million support base. And that we have that critical mass of about 300,000 that we tag as undecided voters who crown the presidents. So, and here we are. So, if you are still tying it to the issue of 84%, I have a difficulty with appreciation with all of it. And I tried doing something about some of the figures, I mean, the constituency that they have visited. For instance, in fact, in the report that I had earlier, was that they visited Akan in the Volta region, but he mentioned in Kwanta. I mean, in Kwanta we have 2 constituencies. But if you go to Akan, the president's showing in that constituency, for instance, was about 73.27%, whereas the MP, who happens to be an independent candidate, I mean, had about 30.81%. And I'm saying that if, for instance, the MP has a lot of showings, or, I mean, he's in much contact with the people than the president. But here's the case, the president is pulling much more votes than the parliamentary candidates. In fact, the president, like I said, 21,000, as against Joseph Ofori's 9,100. And that one, I can agree, because the difference will have been reduced because Japon Kujo, who was the NDC parliamentary candidates, you know, ended up sharing the votes with the
independent.
Exactly.
But if you put them together, so what did they get?
No, it's just about 18,000, and still the president is ahead. So, and that's where I have a difficulty. In fact, if you take the Odio that they used in the Greater Accra, the president and Honorable Neil Antevan Dapoy are neck to neck, about 45,000. You take the Busomi Frenhu in the Ashanti region that they did. In fact, Nanado led the MP about 4,000 votes. In Kwanta South, the president way had about 25,000, whereas the parliamentary candidate is around 13,000. And it comes back to the point that, I mean, the president who is in Accra, and in fact will come not as much as the parliamentary candidates, is getting the votes much more than the parliamentary candidate. And that's where I have some difficulty with
Is it not because he's visible? I mean, the president, by the nature of him being president, will be in the news every day.
No, but the point is that
so where is the point of the influences? You get my argument. So where will be the point of influences? Because I'm saying that in as much as the president is visible, if it is the case that the people are getting, quote unquote, the inducements or the issues that are determining their preferences, their behavior and everything. So where is it in this argument? The point is
that I mean, for me, I think that we are probably overanalyzing this thing, because
I agree with. Yeah, I'm just having a problem with the percentage. No, you understand?
The point is that if you're comparing presidential elections and parliamentary elections, you're comparing apples and oranges, right? Because you have 2 major, candidates. Right?
Going head to head almost.
Going head to head almost, right? And then in the parliamentary elections, you realize that you have independents, you have smaller parties, you have people who have certain strongholds within certain constituencies. There are certain constituencies in this country where the PNC always invariably wins, but they'll vote either MPP or NDC, you understand? But the study actually also goes on to say something about the way we perceive our politicians and what we expect from them.
I'm saying,
I'll give you a
let me show you.
I'm not running away from that.
And you continue just to back what you're saying.
I'm not running away from that.
But 28% of Ghanaian voters think their MPs are responsible for directly giving them loans, paying school fees, and giving gifts to individuals.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, because it would be quite strange for an ordinary Ghanaian to expect that the president will walk into
and give him direct cash.
Direct cash. You understand? People are quite more rational than that. But then for the MP that actually lives within his constituent, his community, he expects that when there's a funeral, you'll be there. He expects that when he's getting married, you are there. He expects that. So you are one individual. I mean, you can ask. I mean, sometimes on the weekend, for instance, from morning, you have your white for the outdooring, you have the black for the funeral, and then in the evening, you have the other jacket for maybe a dinner or somewhere, or something in between, or there's a naming ceremony, and you have to be at all of these places. And any of these places that you go, you would have to spend with some cash. You understand? So that is, it's a given. I have had an occasion where somebody has even asked me to buy a piece of land for them.
for what?
I should give them 8,000 Ghana cedis to go and buy a piece of land. By virtue of the fact that I was contesting an election. It has happened to me.
I wonder what went through your mind when that request came.
And we had requests of giving them cement bags and all of these things so that they will start a small house. You understand? So I'm looking at myself, I'm like, I mean, come on, how much money would I have, or how much money resources would I be able to garner to do that? So for me, I believe that we have to have a bigger conversation.
Okay.
We have to educate our people and say that, listen, if you want all of these things from one individual, expect that something untoward might be happening.
Okay. And keep it there.
Yes, that's it.
You want to take us somewhere? Better.
Yes, indeed. It is half 7. Question that I want to put to you this morning: will voter education on our MPs' mandates change anything? Will it minimize the demands that we have on them? I don't know why I would expect my MP, for instance, to be paying my dowry or buying me that piece of land, building me a house.
Yes.
Listen, on the front page of the Daily Dispatch this morning, Benefson is asking, are members of parliament, who forces them to be there? Really? Let me come to you, Kwaku.
Yeah, that's a critical question to ask. But you see, I was listening to, in fact, a conversation with one of the MPs the last time. And if he happens, he wouldn't go again anyway because he lost his primaries. And his point is that some are still in the house there or unwilling to leave the house just because, the truth be told, if they leave parliament or they decide not to contest, they owe banks.
Banks?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, in as much as they are in there, there is some level of respect, I mean, still accorded him there, and in the process he will maneuver, I mean, and clear his debt. And as we speak to, in fact, some of the newspapers have carried it, some of the, debts some MPs owed banks to the extent that their vehicles have been confiscated and all that. I will mention those names.
Listen, Kafu's MP, for instance, Honorable Leslie Owusu says that some of these MPs literally are dying out of stress from, all of these contributions that
the issue of stress to an extent. But let's juxtapose that with the question Uncle Benefson is asking.
Yes.
You understand? So, I mean, this is a person's own issue. Like I said, some want to be in there for
strategic loan reasons.
You understand?
Yeah.
But you see, the issue of education, I mean, to what extent do people need it?
Look,
I remember
the man is stark, broke, and hungry. You can't come and educate a hungry man. You feed
you
the
get
hungry
it.
man first.
And let me tell you,
people are not going to be taking your education argument. They're not going to do it.
Yes,
He's hungry.
Yes, I listened to the constituency women organizer of Ablekuma West, MPP. In fact, when there was a protest against Honorable Leslie Owusu, and this is a women organizer saying that they do no longer need Honorable Leslie Owusu in parliament because she doesn't even attend funerals. I mean, on air. And this is somebody very lettered, speaking very good English. So when you ask about education, I'm asking to what extent. I agree. There are some there who, for purposes of the fact that, see, they hardly see their MPs. And when you come and they vote for you, you are gone. You don't come back. So they think that around the time of primaries is the time for them to also demand.
I feel
I mean, they are back. And let me just land. And it's a problem. So we need to find a way about it, just as Eric has said, and address this particular issue. I'm not sure only education will be able to do.
For me, I feel that we have to address the issue of the poverty first. Now,
economic
if the man has employment, he has a job, and he's well paid, he's paid a decent wage, he would not be asking you for school fees, right? If the young graduates have some jobs to do, and we are not sort of pretending like we are giving them jobs, right? Things that would not necessarily inure one to our development going to the future, then those things will stop. If we have a proper policy on housing, for instance, we have affordable housing like we want it to be, and it's not politicized where someone will go and take us on a merry dance and then it never happens, then people will not be asking you to pay their rent. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So really, when you look at all of these things, it becomes economic. It becomes economic. Now, if people can afford to essentially bury their, of course, we have a culture of showing some sort of support, empathy when somebody loses somebody is getting married. These are things that happens everywhere in the world. You understand? So it's not necessarily unique to Ghana. But the problem is that we have a huge problem with the way the economy has been managed, the way people are suffering. People do not have access to the very basic. And they see this person who puts himself up for some kind of office and says, okay, so, in our local language, they will say that, and I also will call parliament. So they will basically milk you, right? So let's have a proper conversation on the direction of this country, how we are beginning to develop what we want to do with agriculture, for instance, what we want to do, moving it from a raw material-based economy to a proper agribusiness with a proper value chain, so that folks, because no man, right, would want to sort of sell, everybody has some kind of dignity. But when you're poor, you put your dignity aside and beg.
Do you understand?
So no, really, that is for me.
I just cited her own constituency, women organizer, and that's what she said on there.
I get the point, but on the issue of economy, because I'm thinking that until the economy is of good standing and people's lots have been improved, the demands will still come.
See, the demands will definitely come. I mean, beyond the fact that we need to improve upon the economy. See, Nana Acomia decided not to contest in 2012. And in fact, this is a man, he willingly or voluntarily decided not to contest. And in fact, he was speaking on radio and saying that it is because of his relationship with his constituents, and that if he had wanted to go in 2016, he would have won. In fact, so it is. It has to do about relationship, for instance, that some of the MPs have with their own members. If there are some other constituencies all around, you go to Executive South, where Honorable Collins Dauda is coming from. I mean, you take him off, and many other constituencies. There is no way you go in there and even trying, maybe for purposes of not saying you haven't seen him in the past, and so there is a new election, you want to make demands of him and all that, that you or somebody is emerging to. There is no way you approve such a person. It's because of the way he has carried himself, the relationship with him and his constituencies, how he's been able to lobby for his people in terms of projects. And you see, to an extent, I will agree that we are expecting much more from an MP, that he's just a development agent, nothing much more. But you will not run away from the fact that the politics we are running is very competitive, or patronage, if you want to put it that way, and that the people will want to hear what you are able to offer.
Okay.
So, like they are giving it to the highest bidder, I will be able to lobby for roads, I will be able to provide this. And at the end of the day, if you are unable to do all of that, the next person comes in, they throw you off. And those are some of the challenges. I'm saying that it's not only about education, it's not only about economic matters, not only about the amalgamation of matters. In fact, we need to look at.
But why will I ask for money if I don't need money?
Yes, exactly. That's the point.
Why will I ask for money if I don't? If people beg from every day, and they need it, or they're trying to take advantage of who I am.
Exactly.
And take some money from me.
See, I just cited that somebody out there. The thinking is that the development you have promised, we haven't seen it. But perhaps we haven't had anybody to contest you in the primaries, maybe because it's a safe seat. So you're automatically going. But we need to exert our pound.
Okay.
And
that's it. So not necessarily that the person needs the money. But
the man who is economically sound will not make those requests. He won't bother.
Even within all this conversation,
a lot more people
we also
are in
have
there.
to appreciate that. Listen, majority of these people actually have genuine needs and concerns. So, as a human being, if you're sitting at home early in the morning and a mother comes with her 2 children and says that, listen, my daughter is at Okiopiman and she's been sacked from school, right? Anybody with some kind of empathy would give her something. But the point is that for you as an individual, it's not sustainable.
You can't do it every day.
You can't do it every day. And that is where the problem happens, where on a certain day, somebody else will come and say, oh, and it's a genuine concern.
Let's get to the heart of this issue.
And the heart of the issue is that people do not have jobs. The economy is in shambles. It's been mismanaged and it's been run down. The government should fix it. And then we'll start having this conversation. Now, when...
But that's only one side. That's only one side of the equation, because the other side is also the factors that are pushing MPs into the House. For the fact that the president has to pick a certain number of MPs from the House to come into the executive. So that is what is pushing people to go there, because they are eyeing ministerial or deputy ministerial posts.
I appreciate
and young people like you are deputy ministers already. So I wouldn't be surprised if that figured in your qualifications.
Yes, I have.
In the event that Nana won.
Of course, yes. Yeah. I have my views on that, and I feel that for us to even make any progress, especially when there's this talk about the turnover in Parliament being always, there's probably 2 people left in Parliament.
From 92.
From 92. Yeah. Which, for me, as far as I'm concerned, as much as I want to get there, I feel that maybe it's something that we need to check. Now, if we check this thing about the fact that if you go in there, you are almost likely that you'll be considered for a ministerial position. Maybe it would work. But the point is that let's have a serious discussion on the sort of expectations that we want from the normal, ordinary Ghanaian, and even the politician. Now, today I was listening to the Public Accounts Committee on certain individuals in the district assemblies and everything, embezzling. Not that I'm actually condoning taking the taxpayers' money, but I'm asking myself, if any ordinary person in this country earns 600 cedis or 700 Ghana cedis, and they have utility bills of 700 cedis for electricity, 400 cedis for water alone, before their kids will go to school, before they would have some kind of health care, before they board their trotro to work, and that guy has a bill of 4,000, 5,000 cedis by virtue of just living a very normal, everyday life. What do you expect? You understand? So we should stop pretending that it's all hunky-dory. We are living in an environment where we should fix the system to the point that people have jobs, they have decent jobs, they have decent pay, so that whatever it is that the government is pretending over, right? Because I was asking my security guy, the guy gets paid 400 cedis a month. He has two kids and a wife, and he has a nephew that lives with them. Same as me, I have 5 people in my house. I pay 400 cedis for water. Security guy who gets 400 cedis a month is also going to use the same amount of water that I would use. So this is the real issues. And the people, the policymakers, and the people who are in charge of the economy and all of these things, rather than dancing around the issues, should deal with it. If a politician or somebody who is close to power is giving 54 million cedis of our money, that person is walking scot-free. If you find somebody taking 1,000 or stealing a goat or cassava, he's jailed for 8 years.
Eric, in 2008, we should have 2001 and 2008 under President Kufuor. I mean, we experienced the same thing.
My point is
we're looking at the way forward. We have 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes, so Eric could just wrap up with your way forward. 2 minutes, and then Koku to end.
I am saying that we need to give the ordinary Ghanaian folk a decent standard of living. Make sure that they have what it takes to progress. If it's a business, it's entrepreneurial, we should have the energy for that. We should create an enable environment for businesses to thrive so that our quality of life will improve.
And then the MPs can concentrate on what they're doing. So that's your last word. Koku.
Thank you. I was thinking we'll do this discussion in the word of politics, but he was
we
trying
can't.
to...
You're politicians. It's not possible.
Oh, no, Let's
face the facts.
But
we brought you here because you're politicians.
But where he was taking it to, you see, he was just being hypocritical about the issues.
No, I haven't.
Between 2000 and 2008, I mean, these issues that we are discussing here were with us. I mean, we won't run away from it.
Goes beyond that.
Sorry?
Goes beyond that.
You understand? So, for you to sit here and create a picture as if, oh, it's because today that there are challenges with the economy. And in fact, as we speak, the World Bank, the IMF, all other institutions are talking about the prospects of our economy. Very positive.
What do we see? What do we see? What do we see?
Thank you.
I mean, it's reflective of you.
Really?
I mean, really.
Well,
Kafi doesn't represent the whole of Ghana.
No, but I mean, it's a good example. But I'm just going for it. I'm saying that what within this time that we are talking, I will go in for the fact that there is much pressure just because of the Article 75.
78-1.
78-1, yeah. That make rooms for a lot of ministers to be appointed from Parliament. I mean, it put pressure on a lot of people to get in there for purposes of appointment. And the last time I checked, if I'm right, I think it's part of the constitution review process that it must be reviewed. But sometimes you need to get the reason behind it, that we have tried a lot of ministers or all ministers coming outside Parliament. I mean, to an extent, and in another jurisdiction, we tried all ministers coming from Parliament, and this is just the hybrid. But we need to review it because we need to find a good way about it, and that is for the development of our nation, and that the pressure that our MPs have been undergoing, that doesn't help. And sometimes, you see, I go to Parliament very often. You get there and, I mean, you see constituents in there looking for their members. I agree that a portion of the common fund is dedicated, I mean, for the use of the MPs.
All right.
And that's, they need to use it to pay school fees and all that. But I think that the constituents likely have to give their MPs some time to have concentration.
Breathing.
Work.
Yes.
Okay, we're flat out of time, Eric. Flat out of time. And we must thank you very much, Eric Omokuchi.
I was going to say that
organize
the
party.
SHS.
I knew that was going to happen.
First, organize the party.
Organize
the
Nanagba is from the communication team of the NDC. I'm going to end with this quote, this message from somebody is Marcus from Suhum. He says, as for us in Suhum, our MP gives us what is akukofunu? Dead chickens? The chicken, okay. To convince us to frozen chicken, okay, to vote for him. That's Marcus from Suhum. And then Francis from Nansuma says, the issue we have as a country has to do with realistic job creation and wealth. Who on earth will go about begging MPs for money for tuition fees, rent, and utilities if they are economically sound? NDC must accept that the economy is bad and needs diversification. That's Francis from Nansuma. I'm sure the NDC will say something else to the contrary. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed, and this is supposed to be for laughs, but trust me, it is true. Now you're asking school children what they want to be in future, and they're telling you that they want to be party delegates.
All right, okay, why not? Why not?
Yeah, they see their parents, receive all of these goodies.
Are now into, I mean, universal adult suffrage. So,
okay, so it's in order. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy is it the knocking or is the engagement?
Engagement.
It's the engagement.
Yes.
Enjoy it. I'll love to
Congrats,
the lady
Giovanni.
and Giovanni from the